Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have a review of HUAWEI Watch GT5 Pro. Let's get started. Although this is a review of one product, there are actually variants of it, which is why I have 3 in my hands, although there are 4 editions in total. The basic division will be in size. There is the large edition, which is generally used for men of equal 6 millimeters, and the small edition, which will generally be used for women of 42 millimeters. However, in both the large and small models, there are 2 options. Each has an option with a fluoroelastomer band, which is a material that feels like silicone, but HUAWEI claims it is more advanced in terms of strength, durability, and comfort. But it basically feels like silicone. And the more premium option, in the case of the large model, has titanium band, while the small edition premium option has ceramic band. So these are all options. The fluoroelastomer option is priced at 7,999 pesos in Mexico in both sizes. On the screen, you see the reference price in other currencies, while the most premium edition in materials in both sizes amounts to 9,999 pesos. That in terms of price, but now let's start describing them so we can get to know them a little closer. And this, let's say it's the plain edition with band of the fluoroelastomer, but even though it's a plain band in terms of materials, it has quite a nice design in the compact edition. It looks very nice. It doesn't look completely plain, so it does look very stylish. Also, I find the combination of white with gold very nice. It's actually a very nice looking watch in every way. HUAWEI is generally making smartwatches that not only look like a smartwatch and a tech product, but as a watch should look, also look like an essential part of your outfit or something similar. Also, this fact is worth knowing because you could buy several HUAWEI watches in different styles, knowing that HUAWEI has tons of options when it comes to look. All the watches can be synchronized to your cell phone. Simply the watch that you turn on and are using will be the one that will be activated, and the rest of the watches will be disconnected. You don't need to do a process of pairing and unpairing the watches individually, which I think is very positive, especially as I say on these watches, which are very nicely styled, so you could even have your catalog of HUAWEI watches in different styles depending on which one you want to wear on a certain day. And now you're looking at the ceramic edition of this smaller model. Again, it has this color scheme, but the truth is that it does feel much more premium, the feel of ceramic on this band, plus how it's perceived even. The truth is that yes, it is very advanced and the clasp is also very nice. Just close it, and as you can see, it also has a relatively easy opening. It has some little hooks here so you can adjust the length of the whole strap. You have to take it off element by element, but the truth is that it's not something too complicated thanks to this mechanism that they have put in place. This one, which is the 42 millimeter edition, has a thickness of 9.6 millimeters and weighs 44 grams without considering the strap. But now let me show you the 46 millimeter edition, which as you can see also comes with a very elegant design. It looks too nice. This is the titanium edition, so the strap is made of titanium. There's also the fluoroelastomer edition, but that one I don't have in my hands. That option is in black. And again, we see this same clasp to be able to secure and remove the watch quite easily. And we also see this same mechanism to be able to disassemble the strap and adjust it to the desired size. This large edition has a thickness of 10.9 millimeters and weighs 53 grams without considering the strap. By the way, the straps are interchangeable and come with an easy release button in this generation. So, removing them is going to be pretty simple compared to what we saw in previous generations. Although, apparently, you're going to have to buy some straps designed specifically for these watches if you want to attach them. Although, definitely, the ones already included are of excellent quality. In all models, we will find this round format with a sapphire crystal here in front to avoid any kind of scratches easily. And also, all of them integrate a digital crown that, as you can see, not only serves as a button, but you can also rotate to interact with the watch. And it has a design that also looks extremely nice. Just look at the level of detail that HUAWEI has put into this digital crown. And well, this crown as a button is going to serve you to open the list of recent apps and also change the zoom view of all these apps. In fact, you could also press this button to change the style to a list view and perhaps have more clarity on the name of each of these applications. It will depend entirely on your taste. If we double tap this button, we're going to be able to see the list of recent apps. So it's a watch that is able to give you multitasking performance. And finally, if you hold down this button, you could get to turn off the watch in case you want to. Also included is a button at the bottom. This button, as you can notice, will open with a press the exercise application so you can quickly start a sport. Although in the settings you can change its behavior if you want to open any other application that you specifically want with it. With 2 taps on this button, we will be able to access Huawei Wallet, which seems a bit of a waste to me because in Mexico and many other countries, Huawei Wallet is not really working. I wish Huawei would put a little more effort into developing its wallet in other countries so that you can pay with your watch. But for now, this 2-tap gesture is a bit of a waste because you can't configure it and it will just work for Huawei Wallet, which I insist is very limited. And with the latest version of the software, this watch even supports one touch at the same time on the 2 buttons to be able to take screenshots, something that few watches allow you to do. In fact, I don't think it's something you're going to do that often, but the feature does exist. And of course, they do integrate water resistance 5 ATM and IP69K, so they have very good water resistance. You can go swimming with them without any problem. And when you come out of the water, you can simply press the drain button so that the speaker can beep and it can draw out any water that's been stored on this side. Of course, it will also be very useful to lock the screen when you get in the water, but it could also work for any other type of activity where you don't want the screen to be activated by any accidental touches. So you can simply rotate the crown to reactivate the screen whenever you want. And the display of the 42mm watch is 1.32 inches. It's a screen that really does make good use of the space that it has available. Obviously, it doesn't use the entire front because part of the front is also part of the design of the watch, which, as I say, focuses a lot on being very stylish. This is an AMOLED screen, which is obviously going to give us excellent display quality. It has a very high brightness. It also gives us vivid colors, high contrast, and in this case it has a pixel density of 352 pixels per inch. So watch, even the smallest texts are going to have excellent sharpness. The screen on the large model is 1.43 inches. It has the same resolution, and so we're going to find a little bit lower pixel density, but it's still high enough to be able to have a good level of detail even on these fairly small texts. In addition, note that in this watch we will also find the automatic brightness control, although obviously also manually we can change this parameter specifically as we want. You can also set the time you want the screen to turn off, and if you want to put the screen on temporarily for a long time without turning off, you can also configure this option. It also has the always on display mode so that the screen remains on at all times, showing you the time. Something that can be really very useful, although if you turn it on, obviously the battery will last much less, although it is still a good duration. And something I like about the always on display mode is that it does stay on with a cover similar to the cover it has when the screen is on. At least this is with the Huawei designed covers. Maybe if you download some other covers in the store, you can get a generic view in always on display mode, but in most cases it does have an equivalent cover. So this really gives us a very good experience when using this watch with the screen always on. In this case, what would be missing would be a night mode, for example, which we do see in some other watches that give a view with a red color to make it a more comfortable viewing at night, but it is not yet enabled. What they will obviously have is the gesture to turn on the screen when you turn your wrist, although you configure the behavior you want it to have if you want it to be fully activated or not. Regarding the sound, there is good news as we will find integrated speaker. Through this speaker, we will even be able to play music directly stored on the watch, although it must be through MP3 files since it does not really have yet any streaming application that you can install to download music and play it locally. So, For now, it's still a bit limited with respect to streaming services, but it could store music locally. As I say, for now, you can do that with MP3 files. And in addition to being able to play that music through the speaker, you can do it through Bluetooth headphones that you have connected directly to the watch. They don't necessarily have to be Huawei, everything works fine. And in addition to speakerphone, they integrate microphone. Therefore, you can make calls directly from the watch and hear the person who is talking to you. The speaker volume is not exaggeratedly high to be able to hear in noisy environments, but if you are at home and you left the cell phone away, you can perfectly answer from the wrist, and that is one of the most comfortable actions you can do. However, you can use the microphone not only for calls but also for the voice assistant. Although this is one of the few functions that will be available exclusively when the watch is linked to a Huawei cell phone. In fact, to activate the voice assistant, just press and hold the button below, and then we will be able to start this assistant that takes a little time to start. As you noticed, it does not have an immediate activation as we could find it in Siri on the Apple Watch or with Bixby on the Galaxy Watch, but anyway, I think it does have a sufficiently agile activation. Through this assistant, we can configure some things on the watch. For example, for a 10-second timer, and watch how it immediately goes to start this action. So it does respond well. In that sense, it is an assistant that works relatively well. Although remember that Celia, which is Huawei's voice assistant, is not so good at providing you with information that you request. Although I wish it could also solve mathematical operations, and in this case it notes that it won't be able to. How much is 365 by 12? And he notes that although he does recognize the mathematical operation, he is still not able to solve it. I think he could do a lot better in that regard. He adds an event to the calendar, and he notices that he can't do this action either. He adds an alarm for today at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Fortunately though, what has to do with alarms and timers he can do. He starts a walk. And also what has to do with sports could help. And something that is very difficult to show through the display is the vibration motor. Although in this case it's on the x-axis, it's a premium enough vibration, although not exaggeratedly strong like I've seen on the Apple Watch Ultra or Galaxy Watch Ultra, but it's pretty good, especially in conjunction with the digital crown. Every time you turn the digital crown and there's some feedback in the system, you're going to perceive this vibration in a very good way. And as far as monitoring physical activity, we're going to find pretty much the same thing that we've seen in past generations, but there are some new features. For starters, I remind you, it comes with these rings that give us a general monitoring of approximate calories, how long we've been active and how long we've been exercising. As you can see, you can also see that same information in detail a little further down. And it also has the step count, the approximate distance, if you've climbed as well. And it's also going to give us suggestions to get started with some exercise programs. So as you can see, it has specific routines that we can develop little by little to be more active. We can also enter the record of the exercises we have done. And as you see here, also appears in detail the graph of movement that we have had, the graph of exercise, and also if we have been standing during the different hours of the day. You can edit your goals as well to complete them with different requirements depending entirely on what you want. And also, as you realize, you can see an analysis of how you have performed during the week in terms of exercise, movement, and some other characteristics. We will also find the heart rate reader DAS of the hours of the day. Even with this graph that can show you how this parameter has behaved in your body, it also shows you the maximum peak and the lowest peak at certain times of the day. And as you see, it also shows us at the bottom the history of the last 7 days. So you can more or less keep track of all this information. It will also be able to show you the blood oxygen saturation, as you realize, with a unison analysis automatically, or you could also measure manually. It should be noted that all of these real-time analyses don't really wear down the battery, as might happen in other watches, where there's an abysmal difference when you have around-the-clock monitoring and manual monitoring. It will also be able to analyze sleep. As you can see, it gives us a score. Even with stars to know how well we slept the night before, it shows us in detail the time of light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, and if we were awake. And it also shows us a graph of all this. It is also able to show us the range of oxygen in the blood, the heart rate also in its range, and the respiratory rate. Through its sensors, it will also be able to measure skin temperature. And note that here it can give us this measurement as a mere reference. And next to this access, we will also find the control of the menstrual cycle calendar. So women can keep more or less a record. Obviously, they have to configure everything through the application. So watch here, we're going to be able to access this calendar. You can simply select when your period has started. And you can also create different activity logs, symptom logs, mood logs, and other things that might be helping to kind of predict the next cycle. But through the calendar, it could show you the days of the current period, the estimated days of the next period, and also the fertile window. And note that something I've noticed as a new feature here, it has a prediction setting. In this case, it comes turned off by default, but you can turn it on. And as you notice here, it tells us that it's going to take some other data from your watch, like your body temperature, heart rate, respiration rate, and more information to create a more accurate prediction. So it's very good in this aspect. And well, I'll just remind you that even though I'm using this watch for this section, actually all the other watches that I showed you a moment ago do exactly the same thing. But in this case, Huawei not only has all this previous monitoring that I mentioned to you, which usually include other manufacturers, although in a simpler way, but it also has some other novelties that can also help you to have a healthier life. For starters, the health clovers that will help you to set your goals manually. So your overall goal will be to completely fill your clover once you have completed all the goals you set through your mobile app. We are also going to find the new emotional wellness section. And note that you can also see in this graph whether you have been at ease or with a neutral emotion or in dislike. And here you can also see throughout the day how you've behaved. So in this case, it's not only going to tell you if you're stressed, but also how long you've been at ease and these kinds of little details. And if you're the curious type, you could have a cover like this that's going to synchronize your pet's mood with your mood. So if you are a little discouraged, your pet will also look a little sad. In this watch, we will also find arrhythmia or premature heartbeat analysis. So you can also have a good analysis of how your heart is behaving. They are simply as reference data. Remember that it is not a medical device, but it can help you prevent any kind of abnormality. In fact, it also has this arterial stiffness detection option, which again is a measurement that you can do directly on your wrist to learn more information about the current state of your body. Even remember that it has the ability to make an electrocardiogram, since in this part it has an electrode that at the same time is a button. It also includes the possibility of making an electrocardiogram. It takes about 30 seconds. Obviously, you must be in a comfortable position. I recorded this in a slightly uncomfortable position, but still the result was positive. And then in the app, you can see more. Notice that in the heart information, the electrocardiogram will appear here. Although it takes a little while to access, that's something I'd like to see improved because you have to wait a few seconds. And finally here, you can see these graphs, which by the way, you can later export them in PDF so that you can send them to a doctor as a pure reference. And obviously here in the app, you can also see the same thing that your watch has analyzed, including the health clovers, where you can keep checking off your goals and everything else. Just as I anticipated, here you can set up all these goals that you want to get to have. And you can see all the details of your heart behavior, the emotional well-being that I was talking about a moment ago, and also a little bit more details of your sleep. And I forgot to mention that it's also able to monitor the naps that you might take throughout the day. In sports, we are going to find a tremendous variety, including also a section of routines and exercise plans that could help you if you are a beginner. Although all this must go in sync with the application, but definitely that can help you. You can even create your own routines as well, though again through the app. So I think it's a bit limited with regards to things you can create directly from the watch. There's still a number of things that necessarily need the mobile app, but definitely that if you have a tremendous variety of different sport styles that you can select from, also note that it has some very nice animations, and you can also select here how long you want to get to have this exercise. Finally, when you start it, it's going to start a countdown with an audio feedback as well, plus vibration to let you know more or less the current state. Note that in this case, when you select the jump rope, it will also count the jumps, even stumbles. So it is very specific, and through the colors will also show us the current state of our heart rate. to know if we are already burning calories or not yet. This is just a simple exercise, but remember that with each exercise it can change. For example, I will select walking indoors. And now it is going to show us the heart rate as the main character, as well as the pace and again the heart rate information in color. And also notice that you can access the music player directly from this exercise screen. So you can control both the music on the watch and the music on your cell phone. And it even has a metronome if you want to go through your workout with a certain rhythm, so that through an audio response you can listen to this rhythm and you can set how many beats you want to take. I would like that also through vibration you can keep the rhythm, but in this case it will only be through audio. And note that even though pressing the digital crown opens this menu instead of going to the main screen. If you can somehow switch activities by double pressing the button and opening the multitasking, to, for example, go to take a look at your main watch or any other information on your watch while the exercise is still running in the background, that's a very positive thing. Another important fact is that in the settings, you can also head to the exercise settings section to enable automatic detection, as this comes disabled by default. I guess so as not to consume so much battery, but if you like the automatic detection here, you can enable it. It supports running, elliptical training, rowing machine, and of course walking. And it must be said that in this case, they already updated to count all the previous time before the device asks you if you are exercising. In my case, it took more or less about 8.5 minutes to detect that I was walking. And it asked me if I was walking outdoors or indoors, and after that it showed me that I had already been walking for 8 minutes, so it seems like it worked correctly. An important feature of this Pro model is the golf mode it includes. In this case, Huawei has taken the time to create maps of golf courses that exist around the world. So if you are inside one of those courses, you can open this mode. And you can even visualize the course so you can see all the courses right on your watch. You can also have a driving range section so you can see how it's immediately going to be able to measure your strokes. And more additional information on everything to do with golf. Notice that it also shows us here some ways apparently to grip the golf club. So the truth is that it is quite interesting for those who want to learn, or for those who already have a lot of experience. Also note that in the diving exercise, you can not only access directly to free diving, but it also has apnea exercise and apnea test. As expected, this watch includes GPS, but in this case of 2 bands to have more precision. And it also includes an option to draw your own route. But again, it must be synchronized with the cell phone. And this is just a fun feature, in case you want to draw figures on the walk you do. So you could also draw letters or something similar. As far as additional sensors, it also includes the compass, which as you'll notice works pretty well. It also includes the barometer so you can see the atmospheric pressure, and also access to the altitude. If you generally like to be looking at all this kind of information, you can look it up right on the wrist, and that would be it with respect to the things that you can monitor directly with this watch. As for the battery, Huawei already has us used to a very good autonomy, and this one will be no exception. Obviously, the larger watch is going to have longer battery life and the smaller configuration is going to decrease, but it's still very good. 2 weeks with the larger model, 1 week with the smaller model, although that's as a maximum duration. I mean, you're going to have to turn some things off to reach those numbers, but on a daily basis, the large model can give you about 9 days. And the small model about 5 days, which is a good thing either way, in this case with the default settings. But if you turn on automatic exercise detection or some other options, it's still going to go further, reducing this duration, especially if you activate always on display, because in that case we would find about 5 days with the large model and 3 days with the small model, which in any case is still a good autonomy. They are not watches that you have to charge every day. And speaking of cargo, you should know that they have also improved its power. With respect to HUAWEI Watch GT4, the improvement is significant, especially in the large size. With 15 minutes of charging, it reached up to 43% power. So even if you have little time to put it to charge, it's going to recover very quickly all this energy. On the small model with 15 minutes, it recovered 34%. which is still somewhat higher than what the Watch GT4 recovered. So if you have very fast charging, the large model finished its charge in 43 minutes, up to 100%, while the small model took a little longer, 1 hour and 4 minutes. But it's still a very positive thing, especially also considering that we are talking about wireless charging, it's not pin charging. So really very good in terms of battery and in terms of charging. Let's go now to talk about the software, because it comes with the latest version of Harmony OS, and you can definitely feel that evolution. Let's start by talking about the cover art, as every year they are getting better. Although honestly, I still think they could improve even more, offering us some covers with much more customization in the complications, since it observes that in this case, in spite of the fact that there are customizable covers. In reality, they do not give us so many options of personalization. For example, here we could change the background, nothing more between two options, and we can change the functions that it has here. But there are only 3 options available on the screen, although there are several parameters that we can configure there, so if you have good options to place. But I would like a cover that also allows us modify some indicators in the round outline, and some other more advanced things as we have seen in the Apple and Samsung watches, which are those that generally offer you more customization in these covers. Also note that the majority of covers, it does not offer us so many customization options. In this case, for example, we are only going to have 2 special functions, and if we can change the numbers and other things, but specifically in the functions, it is where we do not have so much versatility. There are some that are going to offer us more parameters, but they are the ones that are focused on digital watches, so it will depend entirely on your taste. But note that it even allows us to change the color that is available here. And as you can see, there are also some slightly larger function indicators, but there are not as many parameters there as we had seen in the smaller indicators. But if we find an important evolution in all this, although I think it still could and should continue to improve. Obviously, through the mobile application, we can access the mask store, where some are paid, others will be free. And yes, there is a ton of variety, but honestly, I wish Huawei would design some specifically with more options, since Huawei generally has very good designers. But talking specifically about the watch faces, I'm still not quite convinced. Notice that it has a few categories. We find the classic watches with different options as well. There is the multifunction section. Especially in these, I think Huawei should improve its design. I think the classic section I do end up liking, but this multifunction section still, it looks with a bit simpler designs. There is also another health section where they will be able to show you your progress throughout the day, and also other activity or numbers. So there is a very good variety. I just insist on the design. I would still like it to be a little nicer or prettier. However, I still see an evolution with respect to the last generation. For starters, because now they do divide it into categories. So you can see that Huawei is still moving forward, but I hope they never stop advancing. Something to note is that although they do have an app store, you can't access it directly from the watch, but it must be through the cell phone. Even if your cell phone is not Huawei, you can access the app gallery of this watch, and there you can download more applications, although logging in is quite slow. That too I would like to see improved. However, note that, for example, it would allow us to have this app to use the watch as a camera shutter, although not being a native function. Maybe it doesn't go as smoothly as we would like, but there is the possibility. It also brings other applications, like to visualize your photos directly on the watch, to have a kind of gallery or any kind of text. It even has a kind of Google Maps viewer that is going to collaborate in conjunction with your cell phone when you're navigating while you're walking around or something. Also calculator, even a Spotify controller, so you can have access to that music. But remember, it's just a controller. It's not going to let you download your music directly on the watch. But this is something that was previously not available, so I see an evolution as well with respect to the catalog of apps that are available for these watches. Hopefully it will continue to increase, because I see more and more options. Obviously, it will depend on you if you consider some useful or some others not so much. There are even some games. For example, there is the Dado application, or also to directly control your Philips lights. So as I say, there are more and more applications in the notifications. One of the novelties that you will like the most is that it finally already has a keyboard to answer messages. However, the keyboard is not available in all the applications that we would like. For example, If you receive a message from WhatsApp Business, there is not going to be the quick reply option, nor the keyboard, or anything like that. Curiously, if you receive a WhatsApp message, normal, if even the reply by emojis appears, the predefined answers, and finally the keyboard, where you can have this fast typing, it has the predictive typing, so you can respond more easily. So I think in that sense it's fine. We're also going to notice that on Instagram. If it gives us the option of keyboard replies, the same thing will happen with Telegram. But it is curious that Messenger, for example, it does not give us that option. This could be corrected quickly with an update, which I hope they send, but I found it very curious. Notice that in addition, if it has the ability to show you emojis, unlike simple watches that only show you an X or something like that, however, uncommon emojis, it's not going to be able to show them. That would still need to be corrected. Hopefully they'll do that with an update. It also won't be able to show you stickers, unlike what we see on watches with Wear OS. So there's still a significant range of improvement, but at least the fact that it already supports keyboard is a very important advantage that I think many were waiting for. Also note that within the keyboard, we will be able to select if we want to insert some emoji, or we can also change the format to go for a traditional layout keyboard, depending on the writing that you like the most. In this case, what you cannot have is a gesture typing on this keyboard, as it does in some other alternatives. So you have to press key by key. So it's improved, but it can continue to improve. I remind you that you also have petal maps, so you can navigate by walking and get instructions to turn right or turn left to get to a place. But you must install petal maps on your cell phone for this to work. Every time you turn on your watch, notice that a little animation appears if you have pending notifications, sliding from top to bottom. We access the list of quick settings where we can keep the screen active for a certain time. Put to ring our cell phone when we do not find it. Access directly to the alarms. Activate a do not disturb mode or also a sleep mode, which is useful at night. In fact, this can be activated automatically when it detects that you are already sleeping, or you can schedule it to be enabled at certain times. The same thing is going to happen with the do not disturb mode, so that's also useful. And finally, the flashlight turns it on immediately. I do wish the flashlight would turn on with a countdown, just so you don't get dazzled the first time you press it. And actually with the digital crown, we're also going to have a brightness control on this flashlight, plus you can access different options of the flashlight, like the color, or if you want it to have any flickering. If we go to the sides, we will notice that we can enter the weather forecast and the music player if you have a Huawei. Here the voice assistant will also appear, and if we slide to the other sides, we have these quick information widgets, which show us the current status of various parameters. In general, all these widgets, we can also rearrange them from the cell phone or also from the clock if we press and hold. So you can see how we can rearrange them completely to our liking, or also add new of these widgets. Okay, as additional applications, we will find the Huawei Music application where you can store local files. We will also find the call application, access to the calendar as well, with a view per day, but apparently you cannot have a view by month. We also find access to the weather forecast. You can access your text messages, and something I had forgotten to show you is that it now also has a calorie deficit assistant that can help you to have a proper control of your weight. Just go indicating everything you're eating so you can see the calories you are consuming, and based on the exercises you are doing, it will also show you the calories you are spending, so that ultimately you can see if you're in a positive or negative deficit. So that I had forgotten to show you in the health section, it also has its own golf app, the flashlight, breathing exercises, and the traditional stuff, the timer, the alarm, which by the way allows you to set multiple alarms. And note that you can also set the snooze, but it doesn't allow you to select any particular sound, or also if you want it to vibrate only, or some vibration pattern. It could also improve in that section, and they recently added their own calculator app, although it still doesn't include the tip calculator, which we do see on other watches. So it's pretty much the same as the calculator, which was already previously from the app gallery to be able to download. What it still doesn't integrate is a web browser. So it's still a little bit more limited in that aspect. And if you have a Huawei, Remember that you will also have the remote camera shutter option available, although it could still be improved if it would show us the preview directly on the watch. Since in this case you have to guess, or first framing well before you go on the other side to activate the photograph. Fortunately, it does have a countdown. But it doesn't let us switch between different camera modes, or anything like that. So let's still say it's a simple remote shutter. But fortunately, it is available exclusively when you have a Huawei phone. Also, if you have a Huawei phone, notice that the alarms that you have set on your phone, they will also be synchronized with your watch. So from the watch, you can also stop the alarm that is sounding on your cell phone. Notice that in this case, the alarm has just gone off. And you can either snooze it or stop it completely. And it's also going to stop on the cell phone. So it has good ecosystem options, although it would still lack an app like AI Live as well, which is available on Huawei cell phones to control the rest of the devices in your home, like turning on a lamp or something like that. Those kinds of little things you still can't do from this watch, nor does it have a voice recorder, which I would find quite useful, considering it does have a microphone. And it would be nice if it synced directly to the cell phone, all these recordings. So I insist, they are very good watches that still have a good range of improvement. They also don't have any kind of gesture, like for example to answer a call, doing 2 taps or something similar, like what if we have seen in Apple Watch and Galaxy Watch. So I'm just dropping suggestions that hopefully Huawei will consider for the next generation or for an update. For the moment, we have reached the end of this video review. I hope you liked it. Remember that in the description you have the purchase links to the official Huawei store in case you are interested, because Huawei suddenly applies very good promotions where it includes several watches or a cell phone and a watch. So I leave you there, the official store. I hope you liked this video and see you next time.